Hello, hello everybody. Welcome to another Born to Flow class. Yeah, Zoom class. I don't like to call them master classes because I feel many of us are like jack of all trades, but we don't actually feel master of anything, right? But I need to kind of go into that. There is a poem all to do with being jack of all trades and being master of many, but that's kind of digressing. What I wanted to talk about today and kind of wanted to discuss is humor and the magician's energy, right? And being the magician, and everybody kind of sees a magician as this kind of, I don't know, wise sage, kind of with lots and lots of like, bit like people, are you both familiar with Merlin? Merlin with the long white beard?
Yes,
Yeah,
from
and
Tales of Arthur,
yeah,
Arthurian legends.
yeah, and like there's that version of Merlin, and he's like this really wise sage, right? And I don't know if you ever saw, I can't remember, the TV series of Merlin. Did you watch that? Did
I never
anybody
saw
watch?
that one. No, no.
So in that Merlin, he's a younger Merlin without the white beard, and he's a real fool. And nobody takes him seriously, including Arthur, right? Because he's Arthur, he's just a servant. Yeah. And I'm really kind of like stepping into this energy of just being this fool. And I know I talk about it in the book, about the fool's journey, right? And kind of going back into this whole thing about when you are like this dark empath, people don't tend to take you very seriously because they either feel you're like really too serious, and I know I can be too serious, or when you are the fool, nobody takes you seriously because just people just take you as the fool, right? And back to the TV series, Merlin in this, it's like he takes advantage of the fact that everybody sees him as the fool, right? So then he can actually do whatever magic that he needs to do and help Arthur. And he's always kind of like in the background. And I am just like wondering, this is my question to both of you. How do you tap into that magician's energy when everything or everyone around you is being serious? It's a question for both of you.
It may depend why they're serious. If they're serious because they're taking themselves too seriously, then maybe it's time just to gently remind them that there's a deeper mission rather than their own saving face. But it's,
Even when it's like this deeper mission, right?
yeah,
We're still serious love. Like, we're all on a mission, aren't we? Like,
yeah,
we've all like, especially the ones that are like, I don't want to. I think it becomes very binary when you say the good and the bad, right? I think there's the good and
mm,
the bad and the ugly and all shades in between.
yeah.
But like the mission can also become like really heavy.
Yes, that's right. I think, yeah, it's when we're disconnected from that magician energy, which is, taking the intuitive step forward rather than overthinking and trying to plan all the strategy out 10 steps ahead. It doesn't work. Yeah. So it's because we're working for something bigger than ourselves.
It's like Natalia loves Madonna, and I think
Yeah,
you do as well,
I do
Angela.
too. Yes, I have great admiration for her.
Natalia, do you remember how Madonna, like in the 80s videos, she used
Yes.
to really make fun of herself, like in Material, no, like Material Girl. Do you remember
Yeah.
Material Girl, that
I
video?
remember Material Girl. Yes.
Just wondering if anybody else has joined us. I don't think they have. Um, yeah, and like she's kind of like very tongue in cheek.
Mm.
And I think some people really related to that and could really um step into that. But it's kind of like it goes back to kind of slowing down, really. You can't really step into that if you're kind of on the go all the time, like in
Mm.
drive mode. It's you have to like step back, zoom out, and see the bigger picture. I'm not saying we're God, but kind of being a little bit like that. But of course,
Yeah.
we're not source, we're not universe. But right, but like we can be in a like in a mini version kind of way.
Mm.
And sometimes when we kind of see the bigger picture, it means that we're not so attached to the outcome.
Exactly.
Like what happened today I kind of I'm glad I'm in a humorous mood when you kind of shared with me like at 10:45, Angela, oh, the Eventbrite link's not working, it says sales have ended. So I was like, interesting.
Mm.
Right, so does that mean that I can still kind of start selling the workshop and just say, oh, by the way, like, or kind of like, is it going to be the end of like the catastrophe? Obviously we can refix the link, and it's like how many people are
You
really.
can just connect to the Stripe, or I can connect to the Stripe and be done with it, because currently we are making like come to the dancing dance with darkness books and be redirect to the Eventbrite and be redirect to Stripe.
Yeah,
That's kind
yeah,
of
we can just get rid of Eventbrite altogether and just kind of like just make it direct to Stripe. Yeah, exactly. And so
My
sometimes.
concern is that because Eventbrite gives a kind of credibility, because a Stripe
no,
thing,
but I mean, I meant you don't need to get rid of it. You can try to fix it, but I think that
mm,
initially that was
I
sending
thought
to,
I thought that was done. Yeah, and I think it's
send,
just a matter of, again, it's so interesting because it all is to do with like time, right?
mm,
And I like it's the magician's energy is all to do with time, right?
mhm,
And the warrior's energy is all to do with space and time and space. We know with like physics, right? Yeah, the normal physics, scientific physics, whatever you want to call it. Time and space are linked, right? Quantum physics, time and space is linked, right? And so the more I lean into this, it's like who who will be there, right? Will be there, right? And it could be that it might be that only a few of us are there, right? It's not going to be 15 or 30 or, it just could be the few of us. And sometimes it's kind of like I was like thinking the one person that's come to these Zoom classes, it's like literally I feel the universe sent her to us, right? And
yes.
like literally I could not have asked for anybody more, and that was just one person. And she described the Born to Flow private community as, what was it, spirituality meets abundance stroke prosperity.
Mhm,
And I'm kind of like leaning into this thing about, okay, we operate in a very fast-paced world, whether we are online or whether we're offline. It's like these are deadlines you got to keep. This is what you have to do. There's key performance indicators. There's, like you're accountable, right? It's kind of like time is very important, right? What you're doing in your time. Somebody shared with me, this is nothing to do with businesses within a corporate setting, that they're now having to submit timesheets of all that they're doing in the day. So the management team don't trust what they're doing. So it's kind of like they're being accounted for every minute, by the time they like come into the job, and by the time they leave, like 9 to 5, you know, what are you doing in that time? So then there's this element of not trusting your employees, right? And what I noticed is there was those few days that I was offline, right? And that's when there was some like shifts happening on Messenger, like people like, you know, saying, "How are you? Are you well? I want to continue this chat that they were having with me like 2 years ago." And that's because I wasn't online. Like I wasn't online. And yet the the other part of me, the logical brain part of me would be like, well, you know, you all your business coaches told you you got to constantly be online and like, you know, like showing up and and I'm like, do I have to be? Like I'm leaning into this question. Do I have to be just because I was told that this is the way? That was the way 2021, 2022, 2023. But is that the energy or presence that I want to be what's the word, expressing? If my message is slow down so you can connect to your passion and purpose. So that's my question. But I'm going to ask the question again, back to how do you lean in to that magician energy? How do you lean in? How do you let yourself be the fool? So let's just kind of close our eyes. So what do you see when you see that, when you hear that question?
I feel playfulness, and I just see that, yes, post every day if you want, but only if it's your true expression. If it's you're doing it because some coach told you to.
I don't want this to be about me. Sorry.
Oh no, just thinking. No, it's just an example. It's an example.
Yeah, and it could be those that are hearing this are those that, like, you know, are online and are like, you know, have a mission to kind of talk about their business or their non-profit or whatever cause that they're doing. But what's the first, when we think of the magician or the fool or humor, what's the first image that comes to mind?
I see courage.
Okay. Natalia?
Natalia doesn't usually connect magician and the fool, so for me it's just two different archetypes because I get used to the 12 archetypes, and there is a sage, there is a jester, so for me it's a jester, right? So it's independent archetype.
That's interesting. So they're not connected for you. Okay.
No. So for me, always was sage and jester. They at least in the frame of that I usually work, they are connected on the like one X that is enlightenment. So one is enlightened about the like truth of how the things are, and another one just enlightens the situation, so make it by deprecating jokes, or my like is able to bring the truth, like the king is naked, right? With like no matter what, right? Because it's for me it's always more about self-irony and not making yourself the central of the world, because that's when you can say something that is truthful but maybe in a fun way. And
yeah, exactly. And I think lots of online coaches and mentors, or leaders, whatever you want to call it, right? Artists, yeah, they kind of, the ones that you kind of really respect and admire, they are they're not too, like they're not too much into themselves, right? Like if you think about all those ones that you admire and respect, they can be tongue in cheek. They can have that humor, right?
They can
And
have
so,
humor. They know that mistakes is normal. They can, for example, like
mm,
for me, it was always that when you are coming to some of the, I don't know, live demonstration of coding, and when the people were messing up and saying like, oh, fuck, it didn't work. Okay, let's try again. And for me, initially, it was like surprising, like, hey, I thought that you are like, I don't know, guru in this coding. You will just make everything perfect from the beginning. And now I just see that you can mess up, you can play with this thing on the go, and don't bother what other will start thinking. You're just doing your stuff, and it's okay. So.
yeah, exactly. And for me, like, like the Jester, I mean, I'm sure both of you are familiar with that Shakespeare and in Romeo and Juliet, there's the nurse. She's the jester. Like in Shakespeare's plays, there's always a very humorous character, right? But they're the really wise one as well, right? So in Romeo and Juliet, it's the nurse and Mercutio, right? They're both very humorous characters, right? Very bawdy. There's a very bawdy sense of humor. And I know when I'm like letting go, when I'm kind of letting go and kind of just trusting the process, not taking myself too seriously, because I can, and I know I can. And especially when the topics have been really heavy topics like trauma or shame, right? This is all real heavy stuff, right? But when it's like letting go and kind of talking about joy and like the leaning into kind of the passion of what you want to do and the fact that what you're doing is not really what you wanted to do. In fact, you never wanted to do it. You kind of went down that route because everybody else was telling you, or one part of you was telling you, because this is what's going to make you money, or like 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 Clara's story, right? She to me, and right, she wanted to be a burnout coach, and her kind of, when we kind of explored, when I remember exploring with her, so what do you think, like, when you've got this business and it's kind of doing really well, and you're kind of like, you're making the money and you can live with that money, her like vision of being this burnout coach was like operating from the beach, right? And kind of like, and she really hadn't, worked it out and seen things through. It was like, yes, that's kind of, and lots of people have their business and they kind of do it from the beach and from the laptop, but do they really? Like, it's there's loads of things that have to happen in between, right? And she hadn't really thought it through, and I don't think she really, really, really wanted it. And when we really then dug into kind of, what happened in the social work job that kind of made her not really happy about it, and she kind of said a little bit, but not too much. But like when I reconnected with her sort of several months later, she was like, I'm so happy I'm back in social work and I'm earning money and there's money coming through and I really like what I'm doing and it's a good team and this is kind of always what I wanted to do. And like, it was I felt like I was speaking to a totally different person. And it was the same person. And it's like, there's this other like part of me that wonders, like, this is a saying, it's very paradoxical, and I can't remember who said it. I thought it was somebody that said it, but I have to kind of look it up now. And it says, we teach best what we're here to learn the most. And although I'm really, really good at helping others to slow down, to help them connect to their passion and their purpose, right? And I, in my own life, can slow down and have been able to. It is still something I need to like work on, because this is the thing. Most of us, and I don't know if you're familiar with Mel Robbins, who's got this pet podcast. And she was basically saying that psychologists, when they looked at most people's like cortisol levels, and like most people are living, whether they've been like heavily traumatized or not, doesn't really matter. Most people are living in drive mode because they are
Yeah.
constantly in either threat mode or drive mode, right? That's the best way of describing it, because they kind of think that, they're going to be, like they're either in flight, float, freeze, yeah, fight mode, right? And this was something that the psychological research kind of came, and that's why they can't find it. They don't find it easy to go to sleep, and they're kind of just on constant high alert. And I was listening to this, and I was like, okay, so because obviously I'm in the world of working with very deeply and very, very traumatized children and young people. But that kind of, to say this is kind of like a general everyday maybe kind of experience, and you don't necessarily have to have that childhood trauma, or was kind of a massive revelation for me. It was like, wow. So my next question is, what helps you move from drive mode to soothe mode?
For me, it's meditation, journaling, yoga. Gets me back into my body, and then I can just put things down onto anything bothering me. I can write down and put it on a list, and then I know that I'm going to handle it.
Okay. What about you, Natalia?
Natalia would always have just its either go for a walk without any like headphones in my ears.
No headphones, yeah? Just
That's a
like,
good one. That's a good one, Natalia. That's a good one.
Yeah, because if I put the headphones, I cannot I'm continue to be on the
yeah,
like
yeah.
on the loop of some sorts and whatever. But when you put the headphones out, then you can enjoy, because I'm going into the nature, so I have a lot of different birds, and you can then start looking at the river. So for me, the best always is just to have some kind of water.
Yes.
So I'm going along the river. I also like if I switch to my photography,
Yeah.
because I'm actually, like, it would sound maybe for you funny, but I made a lot of reflection photography.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm making this like my family always have me sitting in the pedals of water, and because I like to make all like different architecture, but not just the building, but in the reflection of water.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So as soon as I switch to that, then everything is fine.
Oh, lovely.
And they say being by water is relaxing, and it's healing. It's healing to the soul. It's soothing for the mind. and it's very helpful for the body. And I recently visited Bath, and Bath was, in Roman times and even before Roman times, people used to go there because of the what do you call it, thermal pool, whatever,
Thermal springs, yes. The
thermal
hot springs.
yeah, hot springs, and it was like dedicated to Minerva and is it Sulis, the pagan goddess Sulis and the Roman goddess Minerva, and then they were kind of combined. And like wherever you kind of go, there is this like common human theme about sacred waters, whether that's Roman or pagan or in sort of, in Jewish kind of mysticism, it's the river, the river Nile. As Muslims, we have the well of Zamzam. In Christian traditions, it's like, healing, baptism, and water flows. We're born to flow, aren't we? We're not born to be stuck. We're born to flow. Like energy flows, life flows. And yes, there's the earth, and we need the earth to be steady. But even the actual earth plates, this is science, they're moving. So even the earth in this planet is moving, it's spinning, right? So even earth, what is solid, right, is not solid. There is flow. There's electrons and neutrons and protons. Yeah, this is science. I'm not talking woo-woo here. Like energy is flowing. And so what you said earlier, Natalia, like no matter what, when energy becomes matter and it's what matters, that is the real magic, when you're doing what you're here to do. And purpose, this is something I've known ever since I started my business, because I thought like, your purpose is this static, like this, once you find your purpose, that's it. You're like, you're discovered, you're on your way. But purpose is always evolving. You're not, when you be, you become. So you're constantly becoming. So purpose is constantly unfolding. It's not fixed. And so when people find their purpose, doesn't necessarily mean that is what's going to be their purpose for the rest of their life. So I always had this vocation to be a social worker. Then I had the vocation to be a therapist. Then I had the vocation to be a coach, mentor. I had a vocation to be a writer, right? But we're not like stuck in those identities, are we? Are we?
No, not at all. The dynamic.
Yet why do we fix? Why do we stop the flow? Why do we then get stuck in those identities?
I think the question is just the craving for certainty where there is no certainty. We have to create it as we go along.
So then the certainty kind of comes from within, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. Yes.
And the water, and being by water, helps. And being by, in earth and kind of grounding ourselves, our feet on the earth helps. Walking barefoot on the grass or even the concrete helps. And being by fire, like, because sometimes we need to warm ourselves with the fire, helps, right? And in the old days, we used to have, those coal fires or wood fires, and sometimes we can just light a candle, and that helps. And then having that space and that air and breathing like fresh air helps. But even air is kind of constantly circulating and moving, and so is fire, and so is water, and so is earth. So we need those reflections. Yeah, we need those elements within us and around us. And so when we start being certain, right, without the beliefs being fixed, when we fix our beliefs, right, that's when it starts becoming really, really difficult. And so there is this thing what's called cognitive dissonance, right? And where you can have two beliefs existing at the same time. So one belief is to do with a limiting belief, and the other belief is an empowering belief. And most of us have both at the same time. It's just figuring out which one's the limiting one and which one's the empowering one. So back to my question about the magician being this fool, being the jester, being the humorous one. Because then if it's like you said, Angela, playfulness, and playfulness, doesn't that usually lead to joy?
Well, absolutely, yes. You're not taking yourself so seriously. You're taking your work seriously, of course, but not yourself or how others see you.
And so not how others see you.
You're not worried about how others see you. You're just concerned with doing the best job that you can, following your intuition.
And it's just really interesting because you use the words work and job.
But work and job in terms of mission, as opposed to, it's the, we all have work to do in this lifetime. But it's part of our mission, our
What
destiny.
happens if work then becomes play?
Yes.
What happens when we start seeing work as play?
You cannot distinguish. You cannot distinguish work and play when you have a magician in action.
Right. So, because there's no distinguishment, because it's flowing, right? So then it becomes. I used to like this phrase. I don't like it anymore. Called labor of love. I used to really like it, but over time, I'm not aligned with it anymore. I don't know why, but it's like I watched Graham Norton. Have you ever seen Graham Norton, Natalia? Do you manage to? Do you know Graham Norton, this chat show host on BBC? Natalia gone.
Natalia is here. Just switched off my microphone. You mean the one that is about the doctor, or?
Graham Norton is this Irish guy. He's a comedian, and he just basically gets like very famous people on his chat show. It's a chat show, and he he's had very famous people, musicians and actors, and like celebrities, right? And so I was watching him interview Taylor Swift, Murphy, and those two that are in the latest Tron movie, Greta Lee and somebody else, Jodie, I can't remember her name, and what's his name's son, right, Gleason, and also Lewis
Gleason, is it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's it. And Lewis Capaldi, right, musician. And what I found really interesting is well, everybody knows about Taylor. Everybody knows who Taylor Swift is, right? And she said
Yes.
how she survived or how she kind of managed or maintained herself during the Eras tour, right? Because she found it so physically exhausting. I'm going to take this. No, I'm not going to take it. I don't know who that is. I'm going to have to bring them back. Hope they're going to. Oh, I really hate when I have to do this. Let me stop the recording for a minute.
I think you're still muted, Tanya.
Am I back
Yes.
now?
Hello.
So,
Yes, yes.
when the call comes through, it gets muted automatically. What was I saying when that call came through? Before that call came through?
You were talking about Taylor Swift, her show, and the
Yes,
era.
The
And
Eras tour, yes.
So this, I think, whoever's gonna like listen to this class, I really want you to lean into this, right? And both of you as well, who are present in this class. So what she said, and this, I've actually, as a creative person, I've actually experienced this, and it's worked for me, right? She basically said how she survived her Eras tour, which was like, she's running around, she's on heels for 3-4 hours, right? And obviously these tours that musicians and entertainers too are like grueling, right? They're grueling. I don't know. I don't think I could do it, right? And she said what kind of got her through was having this secret creative project. So her songs were coming through for her next album. So what she used to do, she used to do the tour, and then she used to fly to another country and go to, I don't know where it was, right? And then record her songs. So she used to be writing her songs, but she never told anybody that she's like working on her second whatever album it is, right? And that's got her through the physically grueling like tour of like dancing and entertaining and singing and right and although she keeps herself fit and she does whatever she needs to do, right, like the secretive creative process, right, made her spirit kind of continue with the dancing and the singing and the actual tour. So she, because obviously when you are, and I know this because I write songs, and sometimes I sing them, but I don't really sing them in public, but I do write songs. But I notice I can only do that when there is like quiet and peace and slowing down and reflecting time. I can't do that if I'm like busy hosting a Zoom meeting, say, right? Or working on sort of marketing with Natalia, say, or like coaching or mentoring or counseling somebody, say. I can't do that, right? I need to kind of put some time and space aside for that creative project. And I was like, my God, no wonder I was able to, the very first version of Dancing with Darkness, when I wrote that in 2019, I really wrote that first version, right? Because I was really tired from building my business and I needed a creative outlet that I just did purely for myself. I didn't want it published for playing. And then I kind of like thought, well, if somebody like Taylor Swift, who is so damn successful, needs a secretive, creative outlet, surely all of us need that secret, creative outlet. Would you agree?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, I don't think that everyone needs the same. Like if Taylor Swift needs that, all of us need it. Everyone can decide what he needs, no?
let's just like.
I mean, it's like it's. I find it weird.
You find it weird. No, but I actually don't. And I think some people, like, it's true, not all of us do it, yeah. But like some people like to create publicly, and that's fine. But I think there's some of us that kind of like, because they say creation is like silent, right? So this is scientific, right? So when so it's done in the quiet. So when plants or like vegetables are growing, they're growing in the ground, aren't they? Right? And there's usually it's kind of it's kind of done in the dark, it's done with silence. It's they don't, vegetables, that ground vegetables, they don't grow in the light, they grow in the dark, right? And so sometimes you don't need to have that light, that zooming in, that intensity, that, like, for some creative people, you need to have that time and space where you have that solitude to then see what comes out of it. Angela, can you relate to this as a writer?
Oh, totally. Yes. I don't write in cafes, and because it's too, not because they're noisy, but I'd like to be at home in a place where I can just leave my devices open and then just chat and just type away or just write. Whereas it's some, and I went through a phase when I was writing my first book that I had to write at night. It was like I was writing at 1 or 2 in the morning. Now I can't do that. I find that would give me a depression, but I'd like to write early in the morning or a certain time in the afternoon. Yeah, it's interesting.
And
I
and
don't have
so
to be in a particular space. I can just physically sit down and then just say, okay, I'm committing to writing for 45 minutes. And then whatever comes, comes.
I feel like, for me, a lot of that word job was going to come in, and I like, maybe it's not my job, maybe it's my role. I think I prefer the word role, right?
Yes.
And I am a recovering or recovered. Sometimes I think I go back into being recovering workaholic,
Mm,
right? And that's how I've like survived, because I've been through a lot, and the way I've survived being going through a horrendous time is by keeping myself occupied. But that
yes.
sometimes that strength can also become a weakness, right? Your strengths can be your weaknesses.
Yes, I
And
found that.
yeah, and this is something that Matthew McConaughey was like saying when I went to see him at the London Palladium. Like, somebody said, how do you stay so upbeat? And he basically said, I prepare, I prepare, I prepare. No, and he also said, I take a lot of risks. And that has been my strength. It's got me to where I am today. But
Hmm.
that is also my weakness. And I'm kind of leaning back into this, like, for those that are listening and are creatives, I find, and I feel like lots of entrepreneurs are creatives we're like multi-talented, passionate, right? But it's like sometimes when we, hire somebody to help us with our creative project, whether that is right now, I started working on a screenplay, right? And it might become a stage play, I don't know. But it's like, that's like, I feel like that's like my secret creative project, and I don't want anybody to coach me on it. I don't want anybody to mentor me on it. I just want to do it in my own time, because that's me playing, right? And I kind of want to really say this to those that are listening. Sometimes it's totally okay for you to unlearn concepts, strategies that you have been absorbing online, or it could also be offline, because I feel like sometimes we learn so many things that might have been useful for us at a certain time in our lives, but are no longer useful to us now. And this is something that I'm really, really getting more, leaning more into, as I am, like, recently I didn't have, I noticed it's 2 minutes to, and I'm going to end this in a minute. I didn't have like any Wi-Fi because I've moved house, so and the Wi-Fi is being fitted in this afternoon, and then my mobile data ran out and I didn't want to use my mobile data from my other phone, and so I basically was without Wi-Fi, and it really helped me to kind of it forced me to be offline. And when it forced me to be offline, I was just leaning into the quiet of before my sons came home, to just be in that quiet solitude and like just feel into the peace of hardly nobody being in the house. Like, I don't have Netflix, I don't have anything on my phone, I can't even listen to my music. But then I started listening to myself and that question that I constantly ask. What do you really want, Taniya? And then I found myself leaning into being in the present. And I ended up, and I hadn't done this for a long time, I meditate, but I usually meditate for, I don't know, a minute or something a day, maybe not every day. But I ended up meditating a couple of days ago for 15 minutes. And that was the most peaceful 15 minutes I've had in a long, long, long time. And then I ended up visualizing how I want my life to be in a year's time. And then in 5 years' time. And that's where I want to end with, to actually say, why don't you try that? Just sit in silence. Don't need a guided meditation, and just put the timer on your phone, right? Or if you've got a manual alarm clock, even better, for 15 minutes. And when it stops, then you can go back into the real world. And I want to thank both of you for being here in this class today. And for that, I'm going to hope for those of you that are watching and listening, you're probably listening more than watching. We've had our cameras on. Thank you for listening to this Born to Flow class, and I will be back soon.